So I think there's no going back. There's no going back. Now people seek advice on multiple dimensions. A few years ago, if you said supplements, people were like, oh, that's expensive urine. Well, that's true if you're talking about vitamins and minerals. But how many people do I know who during the pandemic started taking vitamin D, getting some sunshine?
What do you mean by that's true if you're talking about vitamins and minerals?
Well, I think when we hear the word supplements, it gets confusing for people. I actually am wishing for a better word, because when people hear supplements, they think vitamin minerals. Isn't that just expensive urine?
Yeah, but it's not. Your body absorbs it if you take it with fat and protein and carbohydrates.
Right. And if you over ingest water-soluble vitamins, you will excrete some. But then there's a whole category of supplements like food supplements, protein, et cetera. And then there's an entire category of compounds that we call supplements that have nothing to do with proteins, fats, or carbohydrates, vitamins, or minerals. Things that are known to have very potent effects. There's a reason why the National Institutes of Health has a division now simply for these types of studies.
Right.
Things like ashwagandha can potently reduce cortisol. Shouldn't be used long term, but in the short term, this can be very beneficial for people, especially late day, because late day peaks in cortisol, not good for us. We know this, correlated with depression, anxiety, insomnia, which then has a cascade of negative effects. Things like creatine, not just we think creatine muscles, and indeed, it brings water into the muscles and make you stronger. Most of the data, clinical data on creatine, are to enhance forebrain function. It's a nootropic. It's a nootropic. It post-concussion, post-surgery, postpartum depression, headache. I mean, fish oils. So there's this whole category of things that, in theory, you could get from food, but the volumes that you would have to eat and the sourcing is just impractical. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, there's rhodiola rosea, which is, reducing cortisol. There's interesting data on that. And then there's the stuff we've talked about before about hormone augmentation. But for the typical person out there nowadays, I think they're thinking about, well, what can I do? What can I eat? How can I take better care of myself? Am I magnesium deficient or not? Probably not. But will taking some additional magnesium help me sleep? Yes. Will it hurt me? No.
Well, are you magnesium deficient? Get your blood work done.
Right.
Like, if you want to find out that, get your blood work done.
Everyone should have their blood work done.
But what I was curious about, like, why you were saying that it's just expensive urine. Like,
no. This is what other people say.
Right, but they're wrong.
No, this is what, when I was young, I got into this, training and supplementation early, and people would say, oh, it's just expensive urine. Don't spend your money on that. There are certain things like within supplementation, also the foundational supplementation, as I call it, like things like athletic greens, right? Or I guess they call it AG1 now. Things that are in such combinations of herbs and plant-based compounds, like you can't take them one by one. And then other things like magnesiums for sleep, or inositol and the data on depression, or inositol and insulin sensitivity. The number of people that are out there who are pre-diabetic or type 2 diabetes, of course, they need to exercise and eat right, but things like inositol can improve insulin
What
sensitivity.
is inositol?
Inositol it's similar to a vitamin, but it works in a pathway that makes cells more insulin sensitive, which is good. So you can use the glucose and insulin that you make, so you're not overproducing insulin. Type 2 diabetes is essentially overproduction of insulin because your cells aren't able to use the insulin that's around, so you crank out more of it. Type 1 diabetes, lack of insulin from the pancreas. That's why people have to inject it who have type 1 diabetes. So things like inositol. I mean, and the list just goes on and on. And so to me, I think the view is changing, I hope, that the idea previously was that, before the pandemic, frankly, was that supplements are just kind of like nootropic that, or, it's kind of, you don't need it. I'm not saying you need it, but they are a powerful augment to good sleep, good nutrition, good training, good social connection.
Yeah, if you want to optimize. The idea of needing it, like, what do you mean, to exist?
Right.
You could eat McDonald's and just live. Like, if you want to optimize your health, right. Supplements are very beneficial. Very beneficial,
but I think for you and me, it's a duh. But I think for a lot of people out there, they seem to think that there's something unique about prescription drugs that makes them better than supplements.
Well, that's because